The Senate will hold a vote later today on the bipartisan border security package Republicans killed earlier this year. The move is expected to fail, with some Democrats and Republicans who supported it last time likely to vote against the measure this time around. Democrats are forcing the move to get Republicans on the record on border security ahead of November's elections. Republicans say Democrats are playing politics. Here is one of the lead negotiators for the bill, Republican Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma, who will be voting now against his own legislation.
The bill is no longer a bill, and now it's just a prop, and that's been my frustration. We wrote it to be a bill to try to actually solve the problem, and to say if this is not going to be the solution, then let's figure out what can be the solution, but let's just bring up prop votes.
Joining us now is Democratic member of the Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. He, of course, is one of the lead negotiators of the border security and foreign aid legislation. Senator, good morning. It's great to see you. I'll let you address your colleague's criticism there, Senator Lankford. But just to remind our viewers, because so much has happened since, a brief history of this legislation, which Republicans said they wanted. They needed something on the border before they would go ahead and approve aid to Ukraine. You gave it to them, and then they turned their back on it. So where are we now with this?
Well, listen, I think it is important to remember that history. Republicans said, let's come together, Republicans and Democrats, and do something about border security. They appointed James Lankford, a hardline conservative senator on the border, to be their lead negotiator. I was in the room along with Kyrsten Sinema. Senator McConnell was in the room. Lindsey Graham was in the room for much of the negotiations. We produced a bill that was the toughest bipartisan border bill in a generation. It would have allowed the president to shut down the border when crossings get too high. It would have reformed the asylum system so that it never again takes 10 years for somebody to have their asylum claimed process. It would have actually brought order to the southwest border. On the night that we released the bill, we had probably about 30 Republicans who were considering voting for it. And that night, that Sunday night, Donald Trump and his MAGA movement lit the bill on fire. They told all the Republicans in the Senate, we do not want the border fixed. We do not think we can win this election if the border is under control. We want the border a mess. And all but 4 Republicans in the Senate listened to them. But border security is still an issue. It hasn't gone away. The voters are telling us do something about it. And so we are bringing this bill back before the Senate today in the hopes that Republicans will join us. It's up to them as to whether they want to vote today to proceed to a debate. If they think the bill should be amended, as James Lankford says, then vote today to proceed to the bill, and then we can have an open amendment process to try to make it better. But my fear is they'll do the same thing again. They'll choose Donald Trump's request to keep the border a mess over border security. But we'll give them another chance today because the issue is so important to voters.
And it is incredibly rich, is it not, Senator, to hear your Republican colleagues now accusing you of playing politics by calling this vote when, in fact, you actually produced legislation that wasn't playing politics, that was trying to find a solution to a problem. And then they decided that they couldn't support it anymore because Donald Trump told them not to so that he could become president again.
Well, and as you mentioned, there will be Democrats that will vote against this bill today. Frankly, that's evidence of the fact that it is a true compromise. And that's what we spent 4 months crafting, an unprecedented border compromise that gives the president unprecedented new authorities to control the border. Mitch McConnell said it himself. He said publicly that Donald Trump told Republicans to vote for nothing. It wasn't that this bill wasn't good enough. Donald Trump told Republicans in the Senate, I want the border to remain a mess. I don't care about fixing the border. And, you know, it squares with reality. Republicans have never passed border security legislation when they've been in charge. Why? Because they can't imagine a world in which the border is fixed. They can't imagine a world in which they can't spend their weekends dressing up like Border Patrol officers, going down to the southwest border and complaining about the problem. But we don't get elected to just have press conferences and complain about problems. We get elected to solve problems, and this bipartisan border bill is our chance to do that. So I don't apologize for bringing this bill back up for another vote because it's a historic opportunity to solve the problem instead of doing what Republicans are addicted to, which is just complaining about the problem.
Senator, I want to turn you now to Israel. You at times have been sharply critical as to how Israel has conducted the war in Gaza and Prime Minister Netanyahu's refusal to endorse a two-state solution. We learned yesterday from Speaker Johnson that he's going to be inviting the Prime Minister to address Congress, and apparently Majority Leader Schumer has signed off on that. I want to ask your reaction here. Is this an appropriate moment for the Prime Minister to come to the United States and address the Congress?
Listen, I'm always open to foreign leaders, especially when it comes to allies of the United States coming to the United States to talk. I guess my question is whether this is in service of Netanyahu's political ambitions, his desire to stay in power, or whether this is in service of strengthening the U.S.-Israel relationship. If Netanyahu is coming to the United States to just chastise the Democratic Party and further embed himself with the Republican Party, I don't think that serves Israel's interests, nor strengthens the U.S.-Israel partnership. But if he's coming here to have an honest dialogue about how we bring peace to the region, how we wind down this war, and how we move towards a Palestinian state, then maybe that visit can be constructive. I've just seen nothing from Netanyahu in the last several months that indicates his goal is peace. What I've seen is that Netanyahu is guided by his desire to stay in power and avoid jail. That is not an interest of the United States, nor I think is it in service of the U.S.-Israel partnership.
So, Senator, I wanted to take a moment to talk about the two-year anniversary of the Uvalde massacre. I know that you have some thoughts on this, especially representing Sandy Hook in Connecticut, and it being so long since that shooting really started the epidemic was the beginning, the marker of gun violence and school shootings across America, among a few others. That amidst Donald Trump at his latest rally at the NRA promising to roll back all sorts of gun safety regulations that finally got through, and amid the lawsuits that families in Uvalde are dealing with, given the police response that was questionable at best. Your thoughts, sir, 2 years later?
So, anytime you hit one of these 1 or 2 or 3 year marks, those parents go through hell again. And not just the families in Uvalde, when there are stories about the Uvalde anniversary, it's the families in Sandy Hook who are reliving their nightmare. But it is important to remember that after Uvalde, we finally broke through. A month later, we passed the first gun safety bill in 30 years. And it's also really important to know that since we passed that bill in 2022, in honor of those kids who were killed in Uvalde and Sandy Hook, urban gun violence in this country has plummeted. Since that bill passed, urban gun violence rates in this country have gone down by over 20%. That means that there are literally thousands of people, mostly young men, who are alive today that wouldn't have been if we hadn't come together, Republicans and Democrats, after Uvalde and passed gun safety legislation with Joe Biden's help. And so as much as these anniversaries are moments to mourn, it is also a time to remember that it's possible, as we did after Uvalde, to come together and pass legislation that's popular and that's impactful. Laws that keep guns out of the hands of dangerous people and keep the most dangerous guns out of the hands of civilians, they do work. And the 2022 gun bill and the decrease in violence we've seen since then is proof of that.
Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, thank you very much for coming on this morning.